pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Person?
Here.
Mr. Prince? Here. Ms. Breyer? Mr. Pavoni? Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Here.
Ms. Palmer?
Here.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, 2 absent.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
I move that we excuse the 2 absent council members.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Prince, that council excuse council members Pavoni and Breyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. First item on the agenda is a proclamation.
Proclamation. Whereas in 2014, an estimated 46,420 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 39,590 will die from the disease. And whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, is the 4th leading cause of cancer death in the United States, is projected to become the 2nd leading cause by 2020, and is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 6%. And whereas when symptoms in pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally at a late stage, and 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of the diagnosis, while 94% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. And whereas approximately 880 deaths due to pancreatic cancer will occur in Washington in 2014, and whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the national organization serving the pancreatic cancer community in the city of Renton and nationwide through a comprehensive approach that includes public policy, research funding, patient services, and public awareness and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates in Renton support those whose patients who currently battling pancreatic cancer and are committed to nothing less than a cure. And whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Renton are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Now therefore I, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2014 to be Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Renton, and I encourage all citizens to join me in this special observance, and witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Renton to be affixed this 3rd day of November 2014, signed Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
I move that this proclamation be adopted as read.
Second?
Been moved by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Ms. Palmer, that this proclamation be adopted as read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Is Michelle Boucher here? And your mother, Karen, please come on up and...
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to acknowledge this. My mom will be a 13-year cancer survivor of pancreatic cancer in February. So I just appreciate this time and bringing awareness to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
you know, I think that it would be remiss to not mention, I'm not sure if any of the council members are aware, but we just lost one of our state representatives, Roger Freeman, passed away recently from cancer as well. So,
Thank you. Okay, next we have a very special presentation, and it involves police recognition and promotions. As the chief is walking up here, I just want to tell family members you are welcome to come up here in front to take pictures if you'd like. So there's no off limits at all. Help yourself. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Law, Council President Person, members of council, and our viewing audience. I'm honored to stand before you this evening to recognize several members of the police department. I'll first start with some recent promotions, followed by recognizing 2 officers for meritorious service over time, and finally recognizing a group of officers for heroic efforts under very difficult circumstances. The first 2 promotions are for the rank of sergeant. This position is the most critical leadership position in any law enforcement agency. They have the responsibility for the day-to-day leadership of our officers in the field. So I'd ask that Sergeant Jeff Harden, Sergeant Lance Gray, and Commander John Schultz come forward. On the far left is Sergeant Jeff Harden. Sergeant Harden has 18 years of law enforcement experience with the Renton Police Department. He's a very successful canine officer with partner Kobe from 2003 until 2010. Prior to promotion, he was a field training officer responsible for training our new officers. He was the Employee of the Year in 2010 for his selfless professionalism, attitude, and work ethic. Last but not least, Sergeant Harden is a proud graduate of Lindbergh High School.
Hey.
Wonderful.
That's
Sergeant Harden was promoted to sergeant on September 16th and is assigned to one of our graveyard patrol squads. To my immediate left is Sergeant Lance Gray. He has 18 years of law enforcement experience with the Renton Police Department. In fact, he was hired on the same day on the same list as Sergeant Harden. Sergeant Gray previously spent the last 12 years in a plainclothes assignment, including narcotics, the Valley Narcotics Enforcement Team, and our own Special Operations Division. He was recently reassigned to patrol operations in August in preparation for this promotion. As an avid soccer enthusiast, in his spare time, he's a youth soccer coach and referee. He was promoted to sergeant on October 16th and is assigned to one of our graveyard patrol squads. In the center is Commander John Schultz. The rank of commander in the Renton Police Department is that position where it's a significant step that we all hired on to be law enforcement officers to work the streets, but once you become a rank of commander or above, you take on more of a management position. So it's typically a big change, a big transition. Commander Schultz has 19 years of law enforcement experience with the Renton Police Department. He spent 8 years as a sergeant with time spent both in patrol and in special operations. While in special operations, John developed a reputation of supporting his work group, recognizing the strengths and skill sets of assigned officers, and supporting them equally to accomplish their projects, all which will transition well in his new assignment. Again, he was also a former K-9 officer. You'll see a trim of that tonight, with his partner Scout from 1999 to 2006. Commander Schultz was promoted to commander on October 1st, and he's assigned to patrol operations. Congratulations.
Gee, sir.
I'd ask that Officer Frank Kierspink come forward. In recognition of outstanding performance over a 20-plus year assignment as a motorcycle officer, Officer Frank Kierspink will receive the Department's Meritorious Service Award. According to our general orders, the Department's Meritorious Medal will be awarded when there is sufficient evidence of outstanding performance of duty on a single occasion or meritorious performance over a period of time, notwithstanding any consideration of the member's physical safety. Operating a motorcycle in general is one of the most dangerous forms of transportation according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The position of motorcycle officer is an inherently dangerous assignment in law enforcement. Not only do you take on the risk as identified by the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, but as an officer you're expected to conduct traffic enforcement, operate his or her motorcycle while exposed to the elements, rain, wind, heat, cold, road conditions, not to mention the behaviors of other drivers on the road, and responding to emergency calls. Officer Kierspink is certified as a master motorcycle instructor for the state of Washington. In this role, Officer Kierspink has trained dozens of operators in the safe operations of a police motorcycle. His classes have such a great reputation for the quality of the motor officers they produce that officers wait until we sponsor a class to sign up for this training. The last 20 years, Officer Kierspink has represented the police department his professional approach to traffic enforcement. And last but not least, this past year, I received an email from a resident that said, you know, he was really impressed with Officer Frank Hirschpink's professionalism. The only downside is he's got a ticket, but everything else he does it really well. So with that, I'd like to give you our Department's Meritorious Service Award. Officer Scott Phipps. In recognition of Officer Scott Phipps' 25-plus years of outstanding service to the citizens of Renton, he too will receive the Department's Meritorious Service Medal. Officer Phipps was hired in 1989 as a lateral officer from the Central Washington University Police Department, and during his career with the department, he was selected as a field training officer and served in that capacity from 1992 to 1996, and again from 2003 until 2006. He was a member of our crisis communication team, which is basically our hostage negotiation team, in 1993. And when I had a graveyard squad in 1995, he was one of my officers in charge. He was selected as a K-9 officer, and he teamed up with K-9 Rico from October 1996 until October 2003. And during this tenure, he declined a promotion to sergeant to stay as a K-9 officer. He was that committed to the K-9 program. Over the last 10 years or so, he has always been available to fill in as an officer in charge during the absence of a sergeant in patrol. In his nomination for recognition by Sergeant Paul Summers, Sergeant Summers stated that he holds Officer Phipps as the example for young officers of what it's like to be a professional police officer, one who comes to work every day and does the job the right way. An evaluation in 1996 has stated, Scott possesses the intrinsic qualities that are desirable in today's law enforcement officer: intelligence, compassionate, strong initiative, good judgment, well organized and responsible. Today, some 18 years later, he continues to display these same qualities. So congratulations. Thank you. Do I have Officer Sean Tierney and Robert Gillin come forward? In recognition of your actions in responding to a homicide in progress on April 12, 2014, both of you will receive the Department's Meritorious Service Medal. According to our general orders, the Department's Distinguished Service Medal will be awarded when the member manifests outstanding courage in the performance of duty under circumstances less than those required for the Medal of Valor, when a serious risk to the member's physical safety actually existed, or when there was a substantial reason to believe that such a risk was present, when the act indicated that the member was conscious of the imminent danger to his or her personal safety, or when a reasonable and prudent person would normally assume such a danger was present, when the objective was reasonably believed to be of sufficient importance to justify the risk taken. On April 12, 2014, officers from both our day shift on 1B responded to what turned out to be a homicide in progress at 1300 Eagle Ridge Drive. The suspect had called 911, identified himself, and stated he had just strangled his girlfriend. The suspect also stated that he was armed with a handgun. Upon arrival, officers quickly assembled into a contact and perimeter team to contain the subject and aid the victim as quickly as possible. The suspect made comments to dispatch about using his gun and letting the police shoot him first. Upon officer making contact, the suspect fled back into the apartment, which he had claimed to have rigged with a barbecue propane tank to explode. Officers tightened the perimeter and maintained constant cover on the unit so residents and families could be evacuated from the units in the R building. The suspect had told dispatch that he was filling the apartment with propane, and he stated the unit might explode if officers tried to enter through the front door. After consulting Renton Fire, Sergeant Merrill ordered officers to shoot out the front bedroom window and the rear slider of the apartment window with beanbag rounds in an attempt to vent the propane from potentially causing an explosion. After the rear slider door was broken, the suspect exited the residence and was taken into custody. In an effort to save the victim's life, officers Tierney and Lennon cautiously and courageously entered the victim's unit with full knowledge and belief that the suspect had rigged the apartment with an improvised explosive device. They found the victim lying face down on a bed and immediately extracted her to the medics who were waiting outside in an attempt to save her life. The fact that the suspect did not release the gas into the complex or use the improvised explosive device does not discredit the heroic efforts of these two officers. On behalf of the department, I would like to formally recognize your brave actions on this date by awarding you the department's Distinguished Service Medal. Congratulations. Don't run away. I'd also ask that Sergeant Tracy Merrill and Officer Brett Ferguson come forward. As you recall, this last July, we had a huge fire up at the Regency Woods apartment complex. And so in recognition of these officers' actions on that date, on July 19th, 2014, Officers Tierney, Yelena, and Ferguson will receive the department's Medal of Valor and Life-Saving Medal, and Sergeant Tracy Merrill will receive the department's Medal of Valor. On July 19th, at about 1:52 p.m., several of our officers responded to an apartment fire at the Regency Woods apartment complex. This fire eventually turned into a 4-alarm fire, which destroyed 3 apartment buildings and spread more than 3/4 of a mile up a hill into a brushy area under the power lines. All of the members noted above responded to the scene and acted in laudable ways. Sergeant Merrill and Officer Ferguson, Yelena, and Tierney all responded directly to the structure fire. When they arrived, they were immediately confronted with the gravity of the situation. Seeing that the building located at 1401 South 18th was completely engulfed in flames and inaccessible, they focused their energies on evacuating the adjacent buildings, which were also on fire. Buildings 1411 and 1405 were both on fire on the entrance side of the structures. Sergeant Merrill and these officers obtained a ladder and began clearing these 2 buildings from the balcony side. Each of these members entered several units of these 2 buildings in an effort to make sure no one was inside. During this time, they all acted in a way which was conspicuously displayed extreme courage beyond the normal demands of police work. Each of them knowingly faced substantial risk to their physical safety in an effort to ensure that no one was inside the 2 buildings that were on fire. The officers involved in this incident experienced exposure to extreme heat and smoke while they were clearing these buildings with no protective equipment. Describing the heat that they experienced, Officer Lennon shared that the heat was so intense that the ink in his ballpoint pen exploded and some of his plastic equipment was melting. Several of the officers noted that the heat was so intense that the vinyl siding of the buildings were melting. Officer Ferguson said that the smoke was very thick and he had to crawl on the floor to make clearing the apartment possible.
Wow.
Officer Tierney utilized the ladder to access the 3rd floor balcony of the last apartment that needed to be cleared. By this time, the building was nearly fully engulfed. Once inside, he noted a crib located in a room closet a room closest to the wall that was on fire. He made his way into the room to ensure there was not a baby in the crib. As Officer Tierney was exiting the unit via the balcony, the attic area of the structure exploded into flames and embers began to fall on him.
Wow.
Officer Tierney suffered some burns on his arms from these embers. At one point during this incident, Officer Lennon noticed a citizen using a fire extinguisher to put out a small spot fire that were popping up. Officer Lennon saw the subject pass out and fall to the ground. Officer Lennon pulled his vehicle up to the victim and was going to evacuate him through the use of his patrol vehicle. As he approached, the victim came to. He stood up and started running. Officer Yelenin yelled at him to get in his vehicle, but the victim did not respond. Immediately thereafter, the victim passed out again and fell to the ground. Officer Yelenin exited his vehicle, went to the victim, dragging him back into his patrol car. At this point, Officer Tierney saw that Officer Yelenin was struggling to get to the victim into his patrol car and came over to assist. They successfully lowered the victim into the patrol vehicle and evacuated him a short distance to an area where they could render aid. They removed the victim from the patrol car and began assessing his condition. Discovering that the victim was not breathing and had no heartbeat, they began providing CPR. Shortly thereafter, the victim started breathing and regained an erratic heartbeat. Officer Ferguson arrived at the location with one of our AEDs and assisted with CPR. Officer Tierney connected the AED device to the victim. Once connected, the AED advised him to shock the victim. The shock was delivered and the victim was stabilized. At this point, this victim was handed off to the fire personnel who transferred him to Valley Medical Center for further treatment, and the victim ultimately survived this incident. Officer Yelenin, Tierney, Ferguson, and Sergeant Merrill recognized the seriousness of the situation and acted purposely to perform heroic and life-saving efforts in a chaotic and dangerous environment. On behalf of the department, I'd like to formally recognize your brave and selfless actions on this date by awarding the department's Medal of Valor and Life-Saving Medal. Life-saving. Thank you. That concludes tonight's presentations. Again, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to be here this evening to recognize the actions of our officers. We will have a brief reception next door in the conferencing center at the conclusion.
Thank you very much, Chief. Really appreciate that. Want to extend congratulations to those that were promoted. They have been promoted for a little while, but it's great to have you. You guys are just terrific officers, and I really want to say to all of those that have received medals tonight, the citizens really appreciate the great service that you provide, so thank you very much. We're really honored to have you as part of the Renton Police Department.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I have to add my congratulations as well. As a lot of people know, as I was around when some of these people were hired, and it makes me happy to see how successful we are. But I want to thank the families too. The families, as a retired police officer, I understand the trials and tribulations that a family goes through, and we really want to thank you for supporting your husbands and your in this endeavor, and wives, because we're so diverse in our police department. You just deserve a monumental thank you, and I'm so proud every time I pick up the newspaper about and read about what good work we're doing, and then you get something like this tonight. It almost brings tears to my eyes. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. We suspect that there's going to be a mass exodus. We're going to try and...
One big group photo for those that were recognized.
Or actually
Yeah, that'd be great.
maybe some separate photos, once we get them all up here. I was just thinking, I watched some of these moms and wives try to get in. These guys are so camera shy, they were in and out before they could get their pictures taken, so.
So should we line up over here?
Families, if you want to come stand over this area here, I'll set up a shot with council behind, officers in the front. All right.
Center of the shop.
Just a little bit more.
I didn't know what, they usually try to get the seal in,
I know.
like Kelly
Just like
directed.
her.
I know.
No, we won't make you do that. More. There we go.
Look at the paparazzi.
And then you just slightly there and slightly out. Kind of a stagger.
I feel pretty darn safe.
I'll take a couple quick shots and then this is the really good spot right here. All right. Smiles if I may. Mercy, how about just a slight, no, body-wise, just step over a couple of inches. There we go. Great. There we go. All right. Very nice.
Isn't this spot there?
Okay, I'll get out of the way of the families for a moment with some shots. And we will, I'm happy to share any of the shots that I got tonight with
Can't see a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Driven out of a couple burning buildings. That made those people amazing.
That made my heartbeat
I know, me too. I wasn't breathing, I really.
Now they move.
heartbeat, and it just description made me. I was on the edge of my seat.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Don't take it personal, but I don't think many people are going to stick around.
Oh man.
Moving on to administrative report.
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, nobody signed up for audience comments, so we'll move on to consent agenda. I have 7 items for council consideration. Are there any items a council member would like pulled?
I move the consent agenda be adopted as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that council adopt the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I guess I should make a little comment about the moratorium that you've approved.
We can do that during the, when it comes up to resolution, there's a resolution. so
Okay,
we can
that'll
do
be
it.
good. Okay.
And we can hear you.
That's right.
All moved on.
Okay, so I guess the other thing I'd like to say is congratulations to Jason. You are now officially the city clerk.
All right.
Thank you.
We're very pleased to have you, Jason. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to unfinished business, Mr. Person.
No unfinished business.
Okay, Mr. Prince.
No unfinished business.
Mr. Taylor.
No unfinished business.
Mr. Carmen.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
I got caught up in everything. I do have a report.
Okay, well, you're gonna have to wait. Ms. Palmer?
No unfinished business. It's his turn again.
Mr. Person, go ahead.
I do have one report, the Sunset Neighborhood Park Master Plan.
Okay, Committee of the Whole Committee report, Sunset Neighborhood Park Master Plan. The Sunset Neighborhood Park Master Plan supports the Sunset Area Community Investment Strategy adopted by the Renton City Council on November 23, 2009. The master plan represents a collaborative effort between multiple city departments, public and private partners, and the community to provide opportunities for active and healthy lifestyles, environmental sustainability, interpretation and education, area culture and history, and community connections. The preliminary Sunset Neighborhood Park Master Plan was presented to the Board of Park Commissioners on October 14, 2014. The Board of Park Commissioners recommended the Sunset Neighborhood Park Master Plan be adopted with the recommendation forwarded to the City Council. The Committee of the Whole recommends concurrence in the Board of Park Commissioners' recommendation to adopt the Sunset Neighborhood Park Master Plan. This is signed by the Council President.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
move the
Person.
committee report be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that council concur with the Committee of the Whole report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Carmen.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. I suspect I'm speaking for a lot of us. That's such an impressive job that's been done on that Sunset Neighborhood Park Master Plan by our Parks Department, Community Services Department, Parks Board, everybody that's had a hand in it. I know that the committee of the whole meeting was rather brief tonight. We have been kept up to speed, though, on this, and so it was straightforward for us to approve this. But I'm just hoping that, especially because of the hard work that was done and how satisfying the results are, that this gets a prominent placement maybe on the city's website to really show off the hard work that was done, and get certainly every member of the community that sees what has been put together here is going to be really excited about it. So,
We'll make sure that happens.
and a big thank you to everybody that worked on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kerman. Okay, moving on to resolutions and ordinances. We have 3 resolutions and 8 ordinances for second and final reading.
Okay, the first resolution is regarding the interlocal agreement with King County. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, authorizing the mayor or designee to enter into an interlocal agreement with King County regarding the use of electronic fingerprint capture equipment.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
move the resolution be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this resolution be adopted as read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And the next resolution is regarding a moratorium on residential development. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, establishing a moratorium on accepting applications for residential development within the CA, commercial, arterial, and RMF residential multifamily zones, except within the city center community area, and for previously approved and valid land use applications.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
move the resolution be adopted as read.
Second?
Been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Ms. Palmer, that this resolution be adopted as read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I just wanted to say thank you. I know all of you, like me, have received tons of phone calls from people over, certainly this past year, on how bad traffic is getting throughout our city. A lot of people are really concerned about the fact that we're still allowing apartments to be built in areas where we don't have transportation, we don't have street improvements. And my goal with this is to provide the council with the opportunity to have a meaningful discussion during your council retreat to talk about zoning and all of the impacts of growth. So, thank you. Okay, Jason.
Okay, the next resolution is adopting the rent and fee schedule for 2015-2016. Resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, adopting the 2015-2016 City of Renton fee schedule.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
move
Person.
the resolution be adopted as read.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this resolution be adopted as read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, the first ordinance for second and final reading is regarding property tax levy. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, authorizing the property tax levy for the year 2015.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read. Requires a roll call.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
The ayes have it.
Next ordinance is regarding property tax again. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, establishing the property tax levy for the year 2015 for general city operational purposes in the amount of $36,420,000.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read, and it requires a roll call.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
The ayes have it.
Next ordinance is regarding utility rates. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Section 8110 of Chapter 1 Garbage of Title 8 Health and Sanitation of the Renton Municipal Code relating to year 2015 and 2016 services and utility rates for all customer classes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read, and it requires a roll call.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Pavoni? Nope. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
The ayes have it.
The next ordinance is also regarding utility rates. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Sections 822 and 823 of Chapter 2, Storm and Surface Water Drainage, Sections 8412, 8424, 8431, and 8433 of Chapter 4, Water, and Section 8515 of Chapter 5, Sewers, of Title 8, Health and Sanitation of City Code, allowing for adjustments to current utility rates for 2015 and 2016, clarifying the water shutoff fee language, and clarifying the qualifications for reduced rates.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, excuse me. Roll call.
Oh, right.
I lost.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All ayes.
Ayes have it.
Okay, the next ordinance is adopting a business and occupation code. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Title V, Finance and Business Regulations of the Renton Municipal Code, imposing a business and occupation tax, and adopting a new Chapter 525 entitled Business and Occupation Tax Code.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read, and it requires a roll call.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All ayes.
Ayes have it.
Okay, the next ordinance is regarding clarifying the business license fees. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Section 553 of Chapter 5, Business Licenses of Title 5, Finance and Business Regulations of City Code by clarifying the methods of calculation of business license fees and restating the section entitled Exemption.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read, and it requires a roll call.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All ayes.
The ayes have it.
And the next ordinance is regarding the modifying the senior citizen age threshold for pet licenses. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending subsection 542C of Chapter 4, Animal Licenses of Title 5, Finance and Business Regulations of City Code by reducing the age for city residents to qualify for discounted animal licenses available to low-income seniors.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read, requires a roll call.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All ayes.
The ayes have it.
And the last ordinance regarding the 2015-2016 budget. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, adopting the biennial budget for the years 2015-2016 in the amounts of $2,243,543,692 and $242,343,675 respectively.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read, and it requires a roll call.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All ayes.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, council, for all the work on the budget, and this is very early to have this completed, so thank you, we appreciate it. Moving on to new business, Mr. Person.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I got several things. Council will not meet next Monday, November 10th, as it's a council holiday. The next council meeting will be Monday, November 17th. There will be, and the committee of the whole prior to that has been canceled. So the first council meeting we'll have that night is going to be at 7 p.m. And then I'd also like to announce the dates for the 2015 City Council retreat. It'll be February 5th and February 6th. It's a Thursday and a Friday. And I'm sure we'll hear more about where it is and the topic and all that as we go on. But we wanted to get that on record so people get it on their calendars. Sounds like a long ways away, but it isn't. And The next thing is, we have on the agenda tonight is the election of council president pro tem for next year. So is that, I think you run that portion of it, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'll have to make sure that the city attorney and city clerk keep me in line, but I believe we open it up for nominations.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I nominate Ed Prince for council president.
Second.
Okay, do we request other nominations at the same time? Usually do. Okay, any other nominations? Okay, so is the motion to close nominations?
I move we close the nominations
I think we have to vote on the first.
for president.
Okay.
Okay, am I doing this right, Jason?
Yes.
Okay. It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Corman, that we close the nominations for president. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, one abstention. Okay, so now,
Don't vote on it?
okay, so it's been moved and seconded to elect, what's that guy's name? Ed Prince as president of the city council. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
The ayes have it. One abstention. Okay, so we've got that squared away, right?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
are we doing additional nominations now? Okay. I nominate Randy Corman for President Pro Tem.
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, any other nominations?
I would like to nominate myself.
Okay. Any other nominations? Do we have a motion to close the nominations?
I move we close the nominations.
Second?
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Ms. Palmer to close nominations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that carries. So now we have a motion on the floor for President Pro Tem. Do we just do this individually? Start off? Okay, well, we have
We have?
oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Let's have a motion for Pro Tem.
I move we, Randy Corman be council pro tem for 2015.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to elect Randy Corman Council President Pro Tem for 2015. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
No.
No?
No.
Okay, so the motion carries 3-2.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Can
Mr.
we get a
Taylor.
roll call vote on that for the record, please?
Sure, we can. So, Mr. Prince, we're taking a roll call
On Randy?
on Randy Corman.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
No.
Okay, again, the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, Mr. Mayor, then I guess it's my job to announce committee on the committees. And the committee on committees will be Ed Prince, Randy Corman, and myself. And I think that is enough for one evening.
Okay, Mr. Prince.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I am canceling planning development for November 13th, 2014, and also for Chair Pavoni, canceling the Utilities Committee. And that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the community services meeting that normally would be scheduled for November 17th will be canceled, and that is all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Corman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm also canceling the Public Safety Committee meeting that would have normally been held November 17th.
Okay. Ms. Palmer?
I'll just go along with the crowd here. Transportation Committee would normally meet on Thursday, November 13th, and that has been canceled.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you very much. Last audience comment. Does anybody want to address the council? What's the wish of the council?
Will we adjourn?
Second?
Been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
What do you do? Well, I'm the recreation director for the City of Seattle